I'm a person who I tend to want to believe in magic. I can create almost anything.
If you can make some money, that means you can probably make a lot more money.
I'm really super interested in psychology.
In life, like just walk through the open doors.
And I actually made money off of it until I became a freelance writer.
You're not looking for the right thing.
Yeah, the bullying was definitely a big thing. I was just super different from everybody.
Welcome to the Willpower Podcast. Talking about SEO. So what got you into that realm?
Yeah. So for anybody that doesn't know, SEO is search engine optimization, and it basically means creating content and a bunch of other things with the goal of showing up on Google for a keyword. So the question was, what got me into it?
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, when I was in college, I started my first business. My professor helped me start it, and I did a bunch of different things, and they all failed from a technical perspective. I didn't make money on them until I became a freelance writer. And so I had tried a bunch of different things. Like I sold promotional products, I drop shipped stuff from China, I sold like things on Etsy and at flea markets and stuff like that. But freelance writing was the first thing that it didn't cost me anything to do except my time, and I actually made money off of it. And so my first ever article was this super boring article on insurance that I had no idea what I was talking about. And it took me like 4 or 5 hours to write it. And I ended up getting paid like $5. And for most people, they would look at that and be like, oh, this is terrible. I'm getting paid like $1 an hour. But for whatever reason, I was thrilled. I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, somebody paid me to write something. Like, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And so that's kind of what started my writing career. And I've been writing ever since, and I still have clients that I do writing and SEO for today. But eventually at a certain point, you can only charge so much for just written content as it is, until you need to add some kind of value on top of that. And so learning SEO was just kind of the natural evolution of how can I charge more for my writing. And I found out that if I learned how to write content that could show up on Google search results, businesses would pay a lot of money for that. And so that's how I started on SEO.
Yeah, I had someone, Austin Johnson, on the podcast a long time ago. I think he was like episode 20 or something. And he talked about early on in his like entrepreneurship career, he made this calculation in his head where he kind of like agreed with himself that $1 made through a business was worth $50 made through like a W-2 job. And he was just like, that's just how like he saw making any money through a business was worth 50x, which kind of relates to your story of like making $5, but it's not the $5, it's the fact that you were able to make money through something that you created.
Exactly. Yeah, it was like a proof of concept. It like unlocked something in my brain that I was like, oh, I can make money doing that. Mm-hmm. Even if it's only a little bit. Like it gave me that clear path.
Yeah. And that's very true with most stuff in the realm of entrepreneurship. It's like if you can make some money, that means you can probably make a lot more money. You just scale up what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's very cool. So that got you into SEO. What have you learned through that journey?
Oh, man. Well, I've been doing SEO for like about 10 years now. I have learned so many things. I've written about everything from fitness and health to mindset and psychology to finance to entrepreneurship and marketing, advertising, paid ads. Like I've gotten to learn about so many topics because I was pretty much willing to learn about and write about anything that clients would pay me to write about. Mm-hmm. And it was nice knowing the SEO side of things because I didn't necessarily need to be an expert in the topic. I just needed to be an expert in SEO, and then I could use research and outreach and talk to experts and stuff to get the topical authority. So I guess there's a lesson for you, is that you don't have to be an expert to appear as one, at least not in the eyes of Google. It's changed recently, which is good, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How has ChatGPT changed your business?
Yeah, massively. It's actually a big part of the reason why, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but I started a coaching business helping other entrepreneurs create and scale their businesses. And a big part of the reason for that shift to something else was because I do see traditional SEO dying. Google's already losing tons of market share to social media platforms, and then now also AI and ChatGPT. So I think over the course of time, and Google is coming out with AI and they're fighting back and trying to be relevant still. But it could very well be like a blockbusters type movement, where it's like one day they're there and they're huge, and then all of a sudden it's like they're gone. I don't think that necessarily that'll happen with Google because, like I said, they are doing the AI thing and they're just so big and have so much money. But I guess the ways that ChatGPT has changed SEO is everybody is able to create content at scale now with very minimal effort. Mm-hmm. Granted, Google, their stance has fluctuated on AI content, and most recently it's gone down the hill and they don't like AI content, but they've done certain things to kind of fight back against that. Like there's a recent patent that I was reading about called information gain, and it's this idea that your article is more likely to show up in the Google search results if there's new information that was not previously existing anywhere else online. Mm-hmm. So if you brought something in like new data, a new study, or you did a compilation of other studies and pulled something out of that to create something new, some kind of new insight, that's going to help you end up ranking. But overall, it's just made SEO less valuable and more competitive. And so I'm not able to charge quite as much as I used to. And I just don't foresee things being the same for a long time.
Yeah, it's almost like a double whammy there, because it's, first of all, more people have access to it, to just like immediately creating articles that are SEO optimized. And then also the fact that not like there are people, I have plenty of friends who like their search engine is ChatGPT. Like they don't use Google anymore. They just immediately ask ChatGPT. Yeah, both higher competition and then less market overall. I could see where that would push things down. So that brought you over to your next pursuit. So you want to talk more about that? Coaching for neurodivergent entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, where did the idea come from?
Yeah, so as I said, one of my professors helped me start my first business in college. And ever since I had that experience in college where I had a professor who, they were just a part-time professor. Like they had a business that they ran full-time and they had other things that they were doing, and they were just teaching purely out of desire. They were passionate about teaching people this business world and how to create businesses. And I was always so inspired by that because it had such a massive impact on my life. And I always thought that one day I would, go out, create a business, make lots of money, sell the businesses, whatever, be successful, and then come back in my retirement and become a professor and do what they did for me. And what I realized is that I don't have to wait until I'm like 50 or 60 years old to go do that. Like I can help people now, and the fact that I'm doing it like through direct coaching as opposed to being a professor, I can help them a lot more and achieve a lot more quickly, achieve results a lot more quickly. So we can go from concept or idea to an actual business in a much shorter time frame because we're actually dedicating that time as that coach-client relationship. So yeah, it was born out of passion. I've been an entrepreneur for over 10 years. I've always loved being an entrepreneur, and I love collaborating with other entrepreneurs and teaching people and helping people. And it's just kind of, it's just my passion. Yeah.
Did you ever go the traditional route? Did you ever have like a 9 to 5?
I never had like an office job. I've had regular jobs. Like I worked fast food. I worked at a GameStop for a little while, Starbucks, stuff like that. But I've never had like a traditional 9 to 5 office job or a corporate job. No.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. There's this this whole thing about like how once you get in, you kind of get like stuck in the system and you get the golden handcuffs where they like give you these like benefits. And I definitely feel like I'm a little bit stuck in it. So yeah, that's cool to hear. So your whole career has just been you. It's been entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I would say my entrepreneur career, quote unquote, started in I actually started from GameStop. So this is actually a funny story. I only worked at GameStop for like 2 months, and it cost me so much in gas to get there that unless I worked a certain number of hours, I actually lost money by going to my job. It was like a 40-minute drive, and I was driving like this old Ford Explorer, like a 1996 Ford Explorer, and it just guzzled gas. I got like 10 miles to the gallon, and I lived out in the middle of the woods. And it pissed me off because they always put me on game organization duty. So all I had to do was alphabetize all the games on the shelves, and it was the most boring and tedious thing. And all I wanted to do was go on the cash register and just like talk to people and sell people games and stuff. And there was one day where they finally let me on the cash register because it was just so busy. They needed to open another cash register. And I sold so freaking well. I had more GameStop subscriptions than any other cashier. And there was a guy that came in and was so impressed with my sales that he gave me his business card and wanted to hire me to sell phones at AT&T. And I was literally like rubbing it in their face, like, look at that. I told you needed to put me on the cash register. And then they put me right back on the freaking wall to organize games. And it was literally just this stupid hierarchy thing because nobody else wanted to do it. And I was the new guy. So they just forced me to do it. Unfortunately, I couldn't work at AT&T because I wasn't 18 yet at the time. I was only 17. But when I turned 18, I went and applied, and I ended up getting a sales position at Verizon. So I guess technically I've had some, I wouldn't call it corporate, but I worked behind the register at a Verizon store and did sales. And then that eventually led into me getting a job selling Cutco. Are you familiar with Cutco at all? Yeah, like door-to-door kitchen knives. Yeah. And I mean, picture this, young kid with long hair. I had snake bites at the time, like lip piercings, in a suit that was too big for me. Like it was an oversized suit, knocking on people's doors, trying to sell them knives. It was so embarrassing, but by doing that, I really cut my teeth on sales and learned how to sell people and how to network. And I learned the basics of what it meant to be an entrepreneur through that job.
Yeah, I bet I did door-to-door marketing where I would do like appointment setting for a bathroom and windows remodeling company in Wisconsin. And I learned a lot doing that. You get yelled at, you get like all different type of rejections. It's it's a good learning experience.
I think my favorite experience with Cutco was me, again, long hair, snake bites, oversized suit, knocking on this woman's door, and it was this old lady. She seemed very religious, had the cross on all the walls and everything, and she's sitting there listening to me trying to sell her knives. Like, it's just, it was there's so many funny experiences like that when you have no existing relationship with these people and they're just like trying to sell them stuff. But yeah, I learned a lot. It was a good experience.
Okay, and so then you turn to entrepreneurship. What is your, I mean, you kind of talked about this, but like what gets you moving every day? What gets you out of bed?
I just never really know what a day is going to have in store. Like, I have a rough idea. I know like the tasks that I'm going to be working on, but my favorite days are days like today, where I didn't necessarily have a lot of computer work, but I did a lot of like networking and socializing, and like unexpectedly met a guy who runs a bunch of CBD dispensaries here in Austin, and we just like hit it off and started sharing funny stories and things like that. And I go to all these different networking events and just I get to learn so much about people and their businesses and how they think. I'm really super interested in psychology and how people work. A book that I read many, many times was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I probably read that book over 24 times. And it's the people aspect. The feeling that I get Here, I know exactly how to describe this. So every Monday, Focus Founders, my coaching group, does a group call where we all come together and we talk about each other's businesses and how we can prioritize things and get over blockers and stuff like that. And some days I'll just have these moments where it feels like I'm not the person doing the coaching. It's like coming from somewhere else, and I'm just like this conduit for it. It's the craziest feeling. It's like being in pure flow state. Are you familiar with the idea of flow? When you're just in that pure flow state, especially when it's with other people, the amount of things that you can create are exponential. Like, it just feels like that camaraderie, that collaboration of building new and interesting businesses, especially ones that I really enjoy working with people who are very heart-led, who are passionate and care about making good change in the world. Yeah, I'd say that's what gets me out of bed, is just being able to interact with really interesting people.
What other books have you read that have had like a high impact on you?
One of my favorites that I recommend to people, and most people probably haven't even heard of this one, but it's called How Life Works. I forget the name of the author at the moment, but you'll know it if you see it because it's got this little cartoon character on the front cover. And it literally explains how life works from, like, you know, I'm sure you're familiar with like The Secret and the Law of Attraction and those manifestation kind of things. Okay. So The Secret was like based on the Law of Attraction. It was this massively popular book forever ago. And it essentially just talked about this idea that we manifest the things that we think about and talk about. And like, I read that and it was impactful for sure, but it was missing something. And so this book, How Life Works, it talks about why The Secret actually works from this like super easy to understand practical level. And it's got like pictures and cartoons inside of it. Like, it talks about why bad things continue to happen to not bad people, but why bad things happen to people who bad things have already happened to, like why it continues to happen. And it gives these examples of, like, let's say you're someone who, you know, often gets angry. And so something happens in your day and you get really mad and you like play the victim and you start pointing fingers and you're blaming, and internally you might say things like, this kind of stuff always happens to me, like, and then the universe or the world, life, whatever you want to call it, proves you right. It's like, oh, see, I told you, this thing always happens to me. And so you have this like story inside your head that bad things happen to you. And you're always going to be looking for ways to reinforce that story because you don't want to be wrong. Like, everybody wants to think that they're correct. And so a big part of the How Life Works book is changing those internal stories. And now I'm a person who says that instead of the universe is out to get me, it's the universe has my back. Instead of things are happening to me, it's things are happening for me. And the more I tend to believe that, the more it gets reinforced. And I find little things that just say, oh yeah, this is happening for me. So if something bad happens, it's like later on I can look back and be like, oh, that actually was a benefit in my life because of this. And I think a lot of people look at that and they think, oh, this is like some woo-woo nonsense or whatever. But even if you take the woo-woo out of it and you just look at it like logically, if you're the kind of person who goes, what can I learn from this? Or what good can come of this? You're always going to find something because that's what your brain's looking for. And your brain is designed to find what it's looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There's one thing. Do you know Dr. Robert Glover? He wrote the book No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Yes, I haven't read the book, but I'm familiar.
It's a good read for sure. But he talks about this concept of open doors. And basically he says in life, like, just walk through the open doors. And it kind of relates here because if you spend all your time going down dead ends that are like these closed doors, you're trying to open them, you're pushing with all your might, and you're not looking for the right thing. Whereas if you're looking for the open doors, you just follow those paths. One other thing I was thinking as you were talking, there are basically like you will be able to find evidence for anything, like what you were talking about. You could have a positive story or a negative story. There's so much shit going on in life that is just like there's too much, and that's why we create stories out of it. But you will find evidence for whatever story you pick. And so if you pick a good story, you're going to have evidence for it. You're going to be able to believe that thing. So I agree with you that there is like yes, there is there is a truth beneath the woo-woo of these things. And it's just finding that like practical side of it. But then at the same time, I don't know if you've ever had this. Do you tend to believe in the more woo-woo aspects of these things?
I mean, depends on what it is, but I would say yeah.
So I can use you as a case study because I've struggled with this where I'm like, I can't believe it because I don't see why that would be true. But then people who do believe it get this benefit, which is that they do get the evidence. They get the like placebo effect, which is that when you believe something, it's more likely to just be true and more likely to come true because you're looking for it, like we're talking about. And so there's actually benefit to believing something, even if you don't have any like clear evidence for it. So I'm curious your thoughts there. Do you believe because there's evidence, or do you believe because you know that the belief is going to get you somewhere?
I would say both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's self-reinforcing. I can give you an example. So have you ever used tarot cards or had a tarot reading? Are you familiar? You know what they are? Okay. So tarot cards, obviously a lot of people think, okay, that's magic, woo-woo, people can't read the future, whatever, and fine. But there's another way of looking at it, that if you get a tarot card reading and you read what the card means, it's giving you a different perspective on the thing that you're thinking about. And I think a lot of people have a hard time, not a hard time, they just don't make the time to reflect on things in their life and try to make meaning of it. And the act of using a tarot card or an oracle card or a journal even, and just writing down reflections, regardless of whether it can predict the future or not, you're putting that time and intention into reflecting on something.
Right.
And so magic or otherwise, it's still giving you that benefit of giving you the intentional, mindful time to view something from a different perspective. And so with a lot of the woo-woo stuff, it's like, I'm a person who I tend to want to believe in magic, whether it's real or not. It's like, I like the drama of it, the wonder, the excitement, the possibility. And that's a big thing that drew me to entrepreneurship, is like, I can create almost anything. And I think if you can believe it in your own mind that it can happen, then all it takes is you actually doing the thing. Whether it has actually happened or not, whether you have the proof or not, you won't know until you actually take the action and put your full effort into it. And I think a lot of the issue with like, do I believe this, don't I believe this, is you're spending too much time waffling back and forth and trying to decide on something, as opposed to just deciding and doing the thing. I know I'm kind of going a little bit all over the place here, but I guess to answer your question, I think it's self-reinforcing because I have evidence. I've seen it work in my life, and so I continue to do it, but I never would have done it if I didn't first have the belief that it was possible. And so I just keep doing it.
Yeah, there's an element of faith and just, belief. Cool. Okay, let's talk about like fitness and health in general. So you have a Spartan shirt on. We both did the Spartan Super race on Saturday. First, what was your experience doing it?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was easier than I thought in some ways and more challenging in other ways. Here in Texas, it's very hot. It was like, I think, a high of 96 degrees or something that day.
What was your start time?
11 a.m.
Okay, that's rough.
Yeah.
I did it early. Mine was 8 a.m.
That would have been way nicer.
Very nice, yeah.
I actually had to stop running at a certain point because it was so hot I was going to pass out. But it was my first time ever doing like any kind of race or
Really?
Yeah, I don't even think I've ever ran 6 miles straight.
Okay.
In my life, maybe once or twice.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What made you sign up for it?
So I'm part of a group here in Austin called Adult Recess, and our group does lots of things as a community together. And the girl who started it, the woman who started it, Allison, she was like, "Hey, we're doing this thing. You should sign up for it." And at the time I was like super new to Austin. I didn't know anybody. And I was like, that sounds pretty cool. Sure. Why not? And I signed up. And I've always wanted to do some kind of thing like this. Like I think one day maybe I'll run a marathon or do anything like that. So it was like checking off a bucket list item for me. And so I signed up, and I did some training. And I mean, I'm a fairly fit person. I do a lot of like yoga, some rock climbing. I do a lot of lifting, but the cardio aspect was not. I've never been big into cardio, so that part was really, really challenging. But it was a fun bucket list thing, and I'm glad that I did it, and I crossed the finish line, and I wasn't last. So
Yeah, I thought I had low confidence in myself for the obstacles, which I think was reversed what it should have been, because I'm kind of similar. I do a lot of lifting and stuff, so I have like a lot of upper body strength, but my cardio is not great. And so, but I've also done races before, so I was like, I know I can do that, but the obstacles I don't really know. Okay. And so I was going into it thinking I might fail a lot of the obstacles, and that could mess me up. Luckily, the only one was the spear throwing.
That's the only one you missed?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
Because the other ones were just, I mean, they were all like climbing over stuff and like, yeah, stuff that I'm pretty confident in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I failed the spear throw, unfortunately. That was the only one that you had to do burpees for.
I know.
All of the other ones
also,
were just a run.
I thought that you had to do burpees for every single one.
You used to have to, apparently.
Oh, okay.
But they changed it for this one.
Because when I heard that, I was like, shit.
Like, oh, yeah.
I was like practicing burpees and like, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, those burpees kicked my ass.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was more nervous about the running than the obstacles, because I do a lot of like lifting and climbing and weird stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I missed the spear throw. One random monkey bar thing, it was like the blender or whatever, the one that spins around. I was exhausted at that point and just slipped off. Yeah. And then the only other one that I missed was the one where you had the rope and with the heavy bag at the end, and you had to like pull the rope down.
Oh yeah.
I was so exhausted, and I put my whole body weight on that thing. Like I was up on the fence, and I think I'm just like not heavy enough to get that thing in the air, because it was not budging, and I barely even gave it a shot. After I put my whole body weight on it and it barely moved, I was like, screw it, and just went and did the penalty.
Yeah, that one was tricky. That was a hard one.
Yeah.
I think carrying the bucket where you had to carry a bucket of rocks. Yeah. That was hard.
I did not like that one at all.
And then the sandbag one where you had to carry those little like 60-pound things, and then you had to like climb over a hill.
Climb that giant hill.
Yeah. But yeah, that was fun. I really enjoyed doing it. What's your philosophy on health and fitness in your normal life outside of Spartan races?
Yeah, I think movement in general is super important. So I'm not a huge proponent of any particular type of exercise, as long as you're like moving and doing something. And me being someone who's neurodivergent, and I work with a lot of people with ADHD, I think it's a lot more about like making the movement fun than it is about like optimizing or having the perfect workout, because that's what makes you consistent with it, and that's what's important, is that you're consistent. And so I do all kinds of stuff. Lifting is a big passion of mine. When I was younger, I was the same height I am now. I'm 160 pounds, but back then I was like 115. I was just skin and bones. Like I was so skinny, you could see all my rib cage and everything. And then I had this year of my life where I went through this massive transformation, because I was just so fed up with being weak and like feeling like I wasn't fit. And I tracked every calorie and went to the gym religiously for a year straight. Yeah. And I went from 115 to 150 in that year. Yeah. It was a massive change.
So that was 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And you almost got to where you are now, like weight wise.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure there's different changes in your body composition, but yeah, that's a big I feel like that's a big lesson, that it's something I've been realizing lately, which is certain changes you make like feel like a long time. It's like, oh, I have to do this thing for a year, but then you realize, oh, that's for the rest of my life though, that change. So it's like you made this change, it took you a year, I'm sure it was a lot of hard work, but now you get a lifetime of being in the body that you want.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm still like, I'd still like to gain a little bit more weight, be more muscular, or whatever. But I'm so much happier with how my body is now than I used to be. But the interesting thing is, looking back on that year, I don't really remember it being that hard. Like, I only went to the gym 3 to 4 days a week. It wasn't like I was going every single day. And when I did go, it was like an hour and 15 minutes. Like, it wasn't a crazy amount of exercise. It was just consistency over a long period of time, which that's the theme here is be consistent. And the reason it wasn't that hard was because it was so like intrinsically motivating to me. I mean, there were periods, I'm sure, when I first started, I was really freaking sore, I was tired, didn't want to get out, whatever. But tracking my results and my progress and seeing the number go up that I could lift was just so freaking motivating to me. I was like, oh my God, like, there's actual clear, tangible progress. Like, I am getting stronger and I have proof. Mm-hmm. And that just made it so much more fun for me.
Yeah, I think that, like, one of the things about the gym that can get you hooked is that you get to see the weight go up.
It does suck when you take time off and it goes down and you're But
and then diet. What kind of, like, how do you eat typically?
Yeah, so I've not really super strict on my diet. I've always had the opposite problem of a lot of people, is I struggle to put on weight. And I also don't typically have a very big appetite. I do more so now that I'm super active, but I had to, during that year, force myself to eat. And that was actually harder than the working out, like way harder was eating enough. I remember making these protein shakes with like oats and bananas and peanut butter and protein powder and all kinds of stuff. And these protein shakes were like 1,400 calories. And I would just do 2 of those every day. And that was like the majority of my diet, which I'm not saying that's healthy, but like that was what I had to do to get through it. But nowadays it's like I eat a lot of like eggs for breakfast, with toast and whatever, oatmeal, and then just like chicken, rice, vegetables, ground beef. Like I don't think about it super, super hard. And honestly, especially lately, because I've been so busy, I've been doing a lot of the pre-made meals that they sell at HEB that you could just heat up real quick. And I'm starting to get better about cooking again, but food has always been like one of the biggest stressors in my life, weirdly enough. Yeah, but I'm not super strict on it. I just kind of eat what I want, and I don't tend to want processed foods.
Yeah, I found that I feel a lot better not on them. I've been doing this like slow carb diet, which is Tim Ferriss. Do you know Tim Ferriss?
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of him? Okay.
Yep. 4-Hour Workweek was one of the first ones I read on the beginning of my entrepreneur journey.
Okay, awesome. I have a copy, but I think his next book after that is called The 4-Hour Body. Yeah. And so that's where this. Well. I saw this and then I was like, let me try this for like 60 days and maybe make a YouTube video about it. And the thing about it is you get one cheat day a week where he's like, just eat anything you want. Like, there's no limits. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then like the first one, I like went off the rails, ate like so much sugar, like cookies, ice cream. And then I felt so bad the next day. I felt like sore. Like I had done like a hard workout, like my joints were sore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, this does not feel good. And then also another thing is my mood was so low. Like I was like mildly depressed for one day after eating that much shit and processed food.
Dang.
So that was good. I think it was good for me to see that, to make that connection. Yeah. Like, if I eat this way, this is how I feel.
Yeah. And it's just making it so obvious.
Yeah.
Because the amount of quantity.
Because it's so much in that one day. Yeah. But yeah, so I agree that eating less processed food in general is like the way to go. That's why like most people, like if you're eating a processed diet and you go vegan, you're going to get healthy. If you're eating a processed diet and you go carnivore, you're also going to get healthier. It's like it's not either one of them specifically. It's just the fact that you're getting rid of the processed.
I eat a lot of cookies.
Yeah.
But I eat them in moderation. I'm like, I think that's part of the trick too, is like, I don't overindulge in these types of things. It's like, I'll have like 3 cookies out of the package and I'm good with that.
Yeah.
That's happy for me.
That's a superpower. I'm like a cookie monster. Like I can't do moderation when it comes to sweets.
Okay, interesting.
So that's like, until I started this, which was like 3 weeks ago, I don't think I ate a single sweet, if you want to call it that, for the whole year before that.
Wow.
Like other than like, artificially sweetened or like my
stevia.
protein powder or a Diet Coke or something.
Okay.
But no like
That's
cookies.
That's more impressive than my year at the gym. That's crazy.
Because I can't, dude. I literally, if I do it, I go crazy. I go all in.
Wow. I actually have a friend who's like that. He can't control his eating habits, and he's actually on medication for it because it has to do with his ADHD. But I'm not saying you have ADHD. I'm just giving context. But he has a really hard time when he's not medicated for the ADHD on stopping himself from eating because his stomach literally doesn't ever send a signal that he's full.
Yeah.
And so he'll just keep going and going and going. And so he literally has to get so granular and measure out everything that he eats because otherwise he just will have no idea how.
Know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Versus I feel like my stomach is very much like, you're good, you're full, you don't need any more of this. So it's interesting how the body works.
I have realized something similar in the past, which is I feel when I'm full, but there are times where like, when you're full, like food isn't as appealing or it doesn't taste as good. Mm-hmm. I think my response is lesser. Like it takes longer for that to happen. And I noticed this in high school when I would smoke weed, and I realized, it never came. It was like I could just eat and eat and eat and eat, and it still was just as appealing.
Wow.
So it wasn't that I wasn't full, but it was just like the food still tasted the same. I still wanted more.
Yeah.
And weed really drew that out of me.
Weed does that. Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, how much do you chew your food?
That's a good question. I don't know, which probably means not that much.
Because this is actually like a point of frustration for me. I chew my food like way too much. Mm-hmm. Like I've counted the bites before, and it's like 30 to 50 bites before I swallow. Yeah. Because like I have such an aversion to swallowing anything that's not like chewed to a pulp, which it causes me to eat super slow, which also causes me to eat less because it gives that brain stomach connection time to send, oh, you're full now. And there's like scientific studies on this that talk about how it takes longer for that signal to go up. And so if you give yourself time, because I know a lot of times if I eat fast, I'll still feel hungry. But then if I wait like 5 minutes later, then I realize, oh, I'm actually not hungry. Yeah. So that might be something to do to look into.
Start chewing more and just slow down.
Yeah. Mindful eating.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about books, food. Okay, let's talk about like neurodivergence. So you mentioned you have ADHD.
So I'm not clinically diagnosed with ADHD, but I've done a ridiculous amount of studying around ADHD. I've read lots of books. I've talked to therapists, and they've confirmed that I had it. I just haven't gone through with the actual getting like a diagnosis from a psychiatrist.
Okay.
Just because I don't want to be medicated, and I don't see any other reason to actually get the diagnosis other than if I wanted to be medicated.
How was that growing up with it?
Yeah, so my siblings have it, and they are diagnosed and medicated. And my mom told me specifically she never took me to get diagnosed because I was so smart, is what she said. Which this is actually a common thing with people with ADHD, is that their parents never take them because they do well in school most of the time, because they're just able to cope with the ADHD. So like in school, it would look like I wasn't paying attention at all because I'd be like reading a book or like playing with a toy or fidgeting or something. But it's actually because I already comprehended everything the teacher was saying, and it was so boring to like just sit here and listen to this stuff that I already knew that I was like occupying myself in other ways. And so I never ended up getting diagnosed when I was younger, but it really started like threw a wrench in my life in high school and college, because I was so used to just like scooting through school like it was a breeze because I didn't have to try. But then once it got to a certain point where it's like there is no just scooting by. Like, you do actually have to try, you have to research, you have to write papers, do homework, all this other stuff. This mixed with a bunch of other stuff going on in my life, I got really, really depressed and like failed out of, I was in, what do you call it? Advanced math. So I was like ahead of the rest of my grade in math. And then ended up flunking out of math, even though I was so good at it my whole life, loved it so much. But I got really depressed, and then all the ADHD symptoms came in and made it just way more difficult, because the depression combined with the ADHD, I couldn't pay attention. I was like falling asleep in class and stuff. So that was one way that it affected me, and from like a scholarly level. Another way it affected me, I was bullied a shit ton when I was younger. I was always like too much for people. Like one of the biggest impacts on my life that I've had to talk through with therapists is this moment when I was in class and I was playing with some like Dragon Ball Z action figures inside the desk because the teacher was so boring, and she caught me and she brought me up in front of the whole room and she goes, "Who here has a problem with Bill?" And all of the kids raised their hand, because of course you see your kids and you look around, everybody's raising their hand. You're just going to raise your hand even if you don't know what is going on. And so everyone raises their hand. So I think everybody's got a problem with me. And I just start bawling my eyes out in front of the whole classroom. And there were a lot of like defining moments in my life that I don't want to say like point it to ADHD and be like, oh, that's the reason, blame that victim. Like, I don't believe that I'm a victim, and I'm totally happy with the way my life has gone. And I'm actually grateful for a lot of these things because it's taught me a lot and I get to learn a lot about myself and about other people. But yeah, the bullying was definitely a big thing. I was just super different from everybody. Like, I thought differently. When I was younger, I genuinely was a lot smarter than other classmates. And so that caused it to be really difficult to socialize with them. So the whole social aspect, like, I was so shy and really awkward when I was younger, up through even into like college was when I finally started to learn how to socialize a little bit. And even then I was still really awkward, which is why I read How to Win Friends and Influence People 24 times, is because I was like, I don't understand, like, why can't I make friends and be social? But yeah, I would say those are some of the ways that it's impacted me. Negatively, I guess. There are positives too, but
yeah, that's crazy. That's a crazy story. Yeah. The like public humiliation.
Yeah.
In front of the whole class. Did you have friends growing up, or was it more of like you were on your own?
So I did have friends growing up, but I grew up really poor, and my mom moved around a lot. My dad left when I was 10, and my mom went with my stepdad, and so I was never in one school system for more than like 2 years at a time. So I just constantly was hopping around school systems. And so all the friends that I made, I would make a friend and then end up leaving. And then I'd have to start over again, and then make another friend and then leave and have to start over again. And so I don't have any like really long-term friendships from childhood. Like, it was always just meeting new people. So yeah, a lot of the time I was alone.
And the bullying, if you're willing to go into it, what do you think came of that? Like, how did that change who you were and how you showed up in the world?
It gave me massive amounts of empathy, because I know what it's like to be bullied. I know what it's like to face like severe depression. And I'm like hyper attuned to how my words and actions might come across to other people. And I think because of that, mixed with, reading that book and doing sales and like my studying of psychology, I'm really good at connecting with people and kind of getting on their level. Like, I've experienced a lot of things in the world, and so it's easy for me to relate to people, which I'm super grateful for that, because I love people, as I've alluded to before.
What's been your experience with, like, I mean, you mentioned this before, so I don't know if this is okay to talk about, but like a recent breakup, or not recent, but in the past, relating to a business. What's been your experience with like dating? And I'm curious if there's anything with ADHD that has played into it.
Yeah. So what you're referencing, I was in a relationship for 8 years. We were married. I'm divorced now, and we had a business together. We ended up splitting it when we got divorced, and just gave each other money out of the profits. Dating after that was really, really weird because I never really dated. We got together when I was in college, and I mean, I had dated people, but it was usually like a 2-year-long relationship. So it was never like, oh, I'm going on a date this weekend and then another date with someone else next weekend. Like I'd never done anything like that. And so it was definitely difficult, especially because when I first started my relationship with her, dating apps didn't exist. And now it's like dating app culture. And so that was a whole thing to adapt to. As far as ADHD playing into it, I think I actually enjoy it, and I looked for people who are neurodivergent in some way. Like that was like a point of connection for me, because I was like, oh, they get it. So I can connect with them. I can be too much or crazy or wild or whatever, and then they'll just roll with it, because they probably will be too, and they'll understand what that's like. I definitely, one of the things about ADHD that was massively difficult to overcome for me, and still to this day is like something that I'm working on, is rejection sensitivity. So a lot of people with ADHD have RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, I believe is the D. And it's just, you're just really sensitive to rejection. Like if someone even like seems like they're rejecting you, they don't even have to outright reject you, but they could just like say something in a certain way, and you'll just take it way too personally and be like just destroyed by it. When I was younger, it was really, really bad. I was super sensitive, and even little things could like trigger me and make me feel like, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm worthless, and like go into this negative spiral of the depression and everything. Nowadays, I have a lot better of a grasp on it because I understand that it exists, and I, have done things to kind of mitigate it. But it's still, I catch myself, people can like look at me in a weird way, or just make one little comment that means nothing, but it'll just like, oh, my heart, like it kills me. So it definitely does still play in.
I can definitely relate to that. That like, oh, she looked at me weird, or she like turned away. She hates me now. Like
Yeah.
After having like all the evidence that isn't true, but then still just the littlest thing, you're like, never mind.
Yeah, it just breaks everything. It's like, oh my God. it can get really annoying, because it's like, and I think one of the things to that helped me kind of overcome that is when it happens, I ask the person. I'll literally be like, hey, I noticed I felt this way when you did that, and I was just curious, like, did you mean that, or am I just like making this up in my head? And almost every time it's like, I'm making this up in my head. It had nothing to do with what their intention was. And if it was what their intention was, then okay, fine, and then I get to work through that. But most of the time I find that it's all just stories in my head.
Right. Yeah, and then relating back to what we talked about earlier with the way life works, it's like if you believe you're being rejected, you almost reject yourself. And when you're looking for reasons to be rejected. And yeah, that's 100% true. Because if you think you've been rejected, you're going to start acting that way in such a way that now you are going to be like rejected. So that's cool. So putting it out in the open for you feels like that's been a way to move through that.
Yeah, and that's one of the nice things, because I've always suspected I had ADHD, and I always joked like, oh yeah, I have ADHD. But it wasn't until I got to Austin and started actually working with neurodivergent entrepreneurs that I really started studying it, because I was like, oh, well, if I'm going to coach neurodivergent people, I need to understand them. And I need to actually know what I'm talking about. And so that's when I dug into the research and started reading a lot about it and listening to podcasts and all this other stuff. And the more I learn about it, it's nice because I can do these simple little things. Because now I know, oh, I have this rejection sensitivity thing, and if I just mention it to this person, I can clear it up and it dissolves itself, and it's like no big deal. Versus before, it was like I didn't even know it was a thing. All I knew was, oh, I think this person just rejected me and I feel crappy about it. But now having that awareness makes it easier to deal with the aftermath of it.
Yeah. Yes, that's such a big thing in understanding yourself is like having language around what things are. Like now you know that that's a thing, whereas before you didn't, and it would just happen to you and you have no idea, and you're just riding along on it. So it's very cool to even take that step of just like, okay, now I know it. I know what it is. Yeah. I'm aware of it.
Yeah, and being able to communicate it is massive. Like one of my friends that I used to work with in San Diego, he told me that him and his friend basically created instruction manuals for, this is how I work as a human being in a relationship with another human being, just like as a friendship or whatever. And I thought that was such a cool idea. He's like, friendships should come with instruction manuals of like, this is how I operate. This is what I mean when I say this. Because a lot of times we can say something and it means two totally different things to you and me. Versus if I say the thing and then be like, oh, this is what I mean by that. Now we're on the same page. And in that communication, it's like, I think things just can easily break down. But if you have the ability to explain it, then the other person knows how they can treat you, like that instruction manual thing. Like, because if someone says something to you and it makes you feel a certain way, you can tell them, and then now they won't say that thing to you, or they'll say it differently or something. And so you can literally change it and create better relationships by being aware of it and by communicating it, which sounds so simple, but is actually so complicated.
It's a lot harder in practice to actually know when those things are happening.
Yeah, it takes a lot of awareness, and therapy's been great. Love therapy. I know you just talked about how that your first thing with therapy was with your friend.
Mm-hmm. With Tim.
With Tim, yeah. And I've worked with a lot of therapists in the past, but recently I've been consistent with the therapist for like the longest I've ever been in my life, and it has been so life-changing in the best ways.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So how long has it been?
5 months now, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
when I first started, it was
consistency.
Yeah. When I first started, it was every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to once a month, and then I moved it up. Now it's every other week, because I find that once a month isn't really enough, but every week feels like a lot. Mm-hmm. The consistency, because it just like, I don't know. I went through I get like seasonal depression in the winter. It's actually why I left Pennsylvania in the first place. That's where I'm from. And even here in Austin, where the winters are not that bad and we like don't get snow, I still got really horrible seasonal depression this past winter. It was actually the worst I've gotten in many years.
Wow.
Which I think in large part is because this is the first winter that I was single in 12 years.
Right, a very long time.
Yeah, I had never gone through a winter single since I was like almost a teenager. Anyway, I forget what my point was there, but yeah, therapy's great. Highly recommend.
Yeah, I'm from Minnesota, and so I know about the seasonal depression. It's funny, I'll talk with people from back home. They'll be like, yeah, like this person's not doing great, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, it's February, so I kind of like...
Yeah,
I kind of understand why.
Yeah, it's real.
So what's something that you currently are struggling with?
I am running 2 businesses and juggling a relationship and my dog and lots of friendships. I know more people in Austin than I've ever known in any city I've ever lived in, and I've been here shorter than almost any city I've ever lived in. So I've just got like so many things going on all at the same time. And I'm finding it really difficult to make sure that everything's getting some time. It keeps feeling like I'm putting too much time in certain areas and neglecting others, and then I overcorrect in the other direction. Like fitness, for example, I'm a person who really, really loves going to the gym. And I did some training for the Spartan race, but not nearly enough. And I'm trying to get back into lifting again, and it's been difficult because I've been working like between 8 to 10 hours every weekday, sometimes even more. And then weekends I try to take off, but every weekend something's been planned. So like it's a Spartan race, or it's the Renaissance Fair, or it's like, I've got Illfest coming up. It's like an EDM festival. And I'm just finding that I don't have a lot of time to do stuff like this. which is some of my favorite things to do. Getting on podcasts or meeting new people, going to events, or even just like sitting in a room by myself with nothing to do and just having a journal or something. So yeah, juggling my time is the thing I'm struggling with the most, which is interesting because I do love all of the things that I'm doing and I want to give them this time, but I can only give so many things my attention.
Yeah, that's like the thing about life is you only get however much, we all get the same amount of hours in the day. You have to pick what you use them for. But yeah, that's an interesting balance between like the routine, which is like working on your businesses, which is kind of the known area, and then the unknown spontaneous events, doing a podcast or just seeing what, having free time. That's just like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think there has to be a balance of both. Like you definitely don't want to swing in the other direction of having no structure and nothing. But yeah, so do you feel like you are, at least in recent times, you've been far on the end of like structure, like too much?
Yeah, borderline too much. I would say it hasn't gone like crazy overly. Mm-hmm. I've still had time to have fun and see people and do the things that I enjoy. I'm just kind of like fine tuning that balance because I actually did swing totally in the other direction. So after my divorce, I did not give a crap about money or business or anything. And so I went and I lived in a van for 2 years and traveled around. I barely worked. I didn't have a schedule at all, like just was fully in spontaneous wherever life takes me mode. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, I ended up getting really depressed and feeling like I needed structure and life was too chaotic and crazy. And so now I'm trying to find that good balance of like having the structure, but also still making time for spontaneous adventure and magic. So I'm getting there. I think it's nice that I have a co-founder with Focus Founders, my buddy Rex, and he's a lot more structured than I am. He's very like he's the one who pushed us to have 10 a.m. meetings Monday through Friday. Like every day we're going to meet for at least 15 minutes to figure out what we're doing and prioritize. And I was like so resistant to that at first. I really did not want to do it because I hate the idea of like being forced into structure. That's the whole reason I became an entrepreneur in the first place, was so I could just do what I wanted when I wanted. And if I wanted to work for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, cool. And then if I wanted to stop and take a trip to Bali and screw off for a month, cool. So it's been interesting finding that balance because he's, like I said, very structured, and I'm against that in some ways. I shouldn't say I'm against it. I actually love structure, but I love it when I'm in control of it and when the structure actually gives me freedom. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times, no structure, you'd think you'd be more free. But I've found that when I have no structure, it's actually the opposite, and life feels chaotic and crazy, and then you can't make your business work, and all these negative things happen. Yeah, like I said, I'm finding that balance, and it's just little tweaks at this point because I've swung so far in either direction. And I think the thing that I'm working on right now is trying to figure out how to be as efficient as possible with my time, and also to protect my time really well. Because there was a long period where I would just be like, yeah, sure, I'll take meetings any day of the week, anytime, whatever, it's fine. But now, even with my business partner, I'm like, no, if I said 15 minutes, you got 15 minutes. And then at the end of that, like, maybe if I don't have anything going on, we can extend it. But otherwise, we're cutting at that time. And so learning to be kind of a hard ass about my time has been such a blessing, which has been hard for me because I was such a people pleaser most of my life. So I'm enjoying it, honestly. Sorry, I said a lot there. I was kind of going on a rant.
I was going to say, having like a set meeting can save like that whole structure or discipline equals freedom thing. Like if you put aside 15 minutes to meet with your co-founder and knock off everything that could come up in the day, that's saving you the potential for like being interrupted throughout the day on those same things.
Yeah.
Like trying to do it asynchronously, whatever else. So in that case, I could definitely see where taking 15 minutes is going to create a whole lot more freedom outside of that time.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I mean, we're called focus founders, and that's for a reason. It's because we're trying to figure out how to create more focus in our lives and in our businesses so we can get more done in less time and be more productive and more efficient. And one of those things, I watched this video by Alex Hormozi, I think it was yesterday, and he talked about this idea of there being two types of people. There's managers and there's makers. And so managers have lots of little time slots throughout the day, and their job is to create meetings, have meetings all day and get people on the same page. Versus makers, they only have 2 time slots, and it's like a 3 to 4 hour chunk of time in the morning and a 3 to 4 hour chunk of time in the afternoon. And if you throw a meeting randomly in the middle of that time slot, it fucks the whole time slot, because it takes a long time for you to like get into that state of flow and do that deep work that you need to do in order to create something. And so it was funny because my co-founder Rex, he's more on the manager side versus I'm more on the maker side. And you know, we both have both qualities, but just in our roles, this is where we tend to be. And so I find that like I get super frustrated if I have to have a random meeting with him in the afternoon, because it's just like beforehand, it's like, okay, I have an hour or I have 45 minutes. And then if I get into this article that I'm writing, 30 minutes in, I'm going to be in my flow, and then I'm going to have to stop. And so I just don't even start. Mm-hmm. And then I end up waiting till after, or it gets put off till the next day. And so it's like, it's so important to protect those like deep work periods of time as an entrepreneur who has to make things.
Yeah. So to touch back, I'm curious what the process of going through a divorce is like. Do you have like a high level, like what that was like for you?
It sucks. And it's funny because it was amicable. We were both very kind to each other. Mm-hmm. We were friends throughout the process. Like, it was super easy, and it still fucking sucked. Like, it's expensive. You have to hire a lawyer. Even if you are both like agreed on what has to happen, you still have to pay somebody to make sure the paperwork's done properly, unless I guess you could do it yourself, but then that adds a whole other layer of difficulty and complication. And we technically had to go by South Carolina laws because we were living there. And so you had to be living separately for at least 2 years before you could even legally file for a divorce.
Really?
So I had to wait 2 years after we had separated and then get her into this divorce process. And then the divorce process itself takes forever, and there's all this paperwork and talking to lawyers, and I'm not a paperwork kind of guy. I'm not an admin kind of guy. Like, I like making things happen. I don't like the detail oriented stuff. So it was not fun, but I will say in terms of divorce, I probably had one of the easier divorces that you could have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So both of you were on board with it. Like,
yeah.
It was something that you just agreed on. This is what makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's not too bad then.
Yeah.
But,
and we didn't have kids. We didn't have a house. Like, the only shared asset that we had was the business, which we just sold and split. So.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 years though. That's crazy. You have to be separated for 2 years.
Yep.
I know there are people who like get divorced and then separate after that, or like still have to live together. So I wonder what they would even do in that case.
No idea. It varies by state. We just happen to be living in South
Yeah.
Carolina because we've lived, like I said, we've lived in a bunch of different places. Or maybe I didn't say that, but yeah, I've lived in like 7 or 8 different states, like on my driver's license. So yeah.
What does your dream life look like?
A lot like what it looks like right now, except maybe I got a little more money and I'm working a little less. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things I want to do. I mean, I want to travel. I want to go to different places across the world. I already have traveled some, but I want to keep that going. And I also want to take a lot of classes. I think in my ideal life, I'm taking at least one class every day of some kind, whether it's a fitness class or a language class or cooking or dancing or whatever. Ever since college, I've loved being in a classroom and learning with other people. So much fun.
I miss that as well. I was thinking about taking one at the like community college by here, and then it didn't fit in with my work schedule, so maybe that's still coming. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed taking classes as well. All right, Bill. Let's wrap it up. Thank you for coming on. Do you want to tell people where they can find out more about you?
Yeah, for sure. So Focus Founders, you can find on my Instagram. It's just at Bill Widmer. Widmer is spelled Widmer. That's probably my most active social platform. I'm not really on social media much. We also have a school community called Focus Founders, and that's SKOOL. So if you go to school.com/focus-founders-free, you can sign up there. And yeah, definitely hit me up wherever you find me.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, Will.
Appreciate
it.
Bye, everybody.